Cameron published a report after a visit to the Pollsmoor Maximum Security Prison just outside of Cape Town. He said he was deeply shocked by the extent of overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, sickness, and the overall terrible living conditions of the inmates. Last Friday, 2 prisoners died and others were deemed to be at high risk of exposure caused by a rampant rodent infestation. The police and prisoners' civil rights union, that's Popcru, called for an intervention and a speedy compliance by the Department of Correctional Services to ensure basic standards according to the Bill of Rights were met. We are now joined by Popcru spokesperson Richard Mamabolo. He is in our Polokwane Studios this morning. Richard, thank you very much for joining us on the program and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning to you and the viewers.
Now, I read the introduction and briefly spoke about Justice Cameron's inspection and findings in April, part of his prison visits and monitoring program. What do you make of them? Do you agree with these findings?
Well, look, I think we agree with the findings, but we obviously know that this is not the first time the discussion has been raised. Popcru has raised it on numerous times. What we have found is that I think since 1994 up till today, the prison population in South Africa has increased from 113,000 to around 155. That shows a 30% increase in the prison population over the past 21 years, and of course a startling 117% increase in the number of unsentenced prisoners. Those are the ones who are on remand, as in the case with what has been happening in Cape Town, where over 4,000 inmates had to be evacuated. I think the process is still going as it is, you see. So nationally we've got around 243 correctional facilities, and that of course shows that we are currently standing at a rate of 60% overcrowding in the country, which is a worrying factor, of course. It's not only an issue about Pollsmoor, but it's a national issue.
Yeah. I mean, 60% overcrowding at the majority of our prisons around South Africa. This is a desperate situation right now. You talk about sanitary facilities, general concerns, rat infestation, and many other issues that come with us. What is being done to try and help the situation?
Look, I think besides the ablution facilities, what we have stressed is that, of course, it creates both a risk for prison warders and prisoners as well. So it's not only about prisoners as well, the inmates alone. It affects both parties. We of course have made suggestions that I think the Popcru, through our recent National Congress, which took place in June, was that look, the number of the time that it takes from a person being put in custody to the time that he is sentenced has taken too long. Yeah. You see, that is the area where we obviously need to focus, and of course through calling for the transformation of the criminal justice cluster has been one of the suggestions that Popcru has clearly come out with, to suggest that we need to find a way in which we can close down that space. Otherwise there would not be an increase of over 117% in the number of inmates who are on remand.
Yeah. You know, when we look at your sort of intention, and we obviously see that you intend taking this up with the department on the transformation of criminal justice system. Transformation means a lot of things, but what angle are you going in with when you talk about transformation in the justice system?
We speak of many angles, basically. You know, we feel that the judiciary is not transformed. Firstly, you have seen incidents where the transformation agenda has been rather delayed by certain judges. Like you've got organizations like Freedom Under Law, Judge Krichla, the retired Judge Krichla as well, who have obviously been against the transformation agenda of the country in general. When it comes to who supports the appointments made by the president, all these things are always taken to court on the basis that they feel that they actually are anti-transformation. So we are looking at it from an angle where, of course, there will be a closure between the space in between when a person is put in custody and when they are sentenced. I think at that level, which we're talking about with relation to overcrowding, that is the space that we need to close. And for that to happen, we need to obviously look into systems of the judiciary to ensure that they act quicker than they are at the moment.
Have you been in touch with the department before in terms of this issue?
Of course.
And nothing's been done?
We always engage with the department. I think the one thing that always comes up is lack of funding. But of course, I mean, there are many other ways in which we can obviously look into resolving some of these challenges.
Yeah. I mean, we do look at lots of challenges facing prisons as well. And I think one of the big problems in a prison as well is coming from your members, as when we talk about bribery and corruption within prisons. And this is one of the major issues that also needs to be addressed. What are you doing about this?
Look, I think the challenge of gangs within prisons, the prison culture of, where there are gangs, and of course alleged corruption is an issue. Of course, we have obviously raised it with our members that such things. We do not promote any form of corruption. Firstly, so anybody you would know that anybody who has been found guilty of such acts, of course, would not necessarily get a warm shoulder from Popcru. We have demonstrated that before, and of course we do support mechanisms that aim to expose some of the corrupt acts that have been happening within prisons.
Now, just finally, what's the next step? I mean, where to from here? Because this is a story that's been spoken about for so long and by many sectors of South Africa, and yet the situation just gets worse. Where to from here? Where are we going?
Look, we will obviously be making our submissions around how the matters should be resolved, something which is obviously there already. We will obviously be emphasizing around how we go about that. But obviously, as well, we think that the Department of Correctional Services needs to act more quicker than they have been doing in the past.
All right, Richard Mamabolo, thank you very much for talking to us. Popcru spokesperson who is talking to us from our Polokwane Studios. Thank you very, very much. All right, if you've got any comments that you'd like to send us with regard to overcrowding in prisons, prison conditions, I mean, you're hearing some of the statistics being thrown about, the fact that 60% overcrowding exists in the majority of our prisons in South Africa. There's 155,000 prisoners, but we should be only catering for about 115,000, and this is crazy when we've only got 243 prisons nationwide. So this is something we need to look at, and we'd love to hear from you as well. Please send us your views, your comments at Morning Live SABC if you'd like to chat to us.